Hello, my Legitimates. Today we are making the Seductress by me. So this is a fold-over clutch wallet. We've got a lovely accent on the back. This one I did in rainbow just because I felt like it. And then we've got a press stud here, and it opens up, and you've got card slots here, as well as another zipper pocket, an ID wallet, and then in front and behind the zipper section, you've got another 2 sections to put your notes and or coins, and then the top also opens up, and this pocket is the full length. So if you wanted to keep stuff in here and then fold it over for easy carrying, and then it just clips together like that. So this is what we're making today. This one is embroidered. This is a 4x4 design, but the one we're making today doesn't have any embroidery. I just wanted to show you what it looked like with it. And this is from Urban Threads. So I'm going to start with my card slots. Now, if you iron them the way the pattern says, they should look like this, where the front bit is like way too short. It is meant to be like that, so please don't freak out. And then I'm going to take, I'm going to use vinyl. This is actually quite a thin vinyl, but that will still work. So we're going to have a vinyl front, like we did on this one here. So we're going to put our right sides together, and this is just the seam allowance, this fold over. So the best way to do this is to sew in the crease. Like this. So just line up the edges and essentially just stitch in the ditch. I'm going to move that so I don't push it out. There's also not a lot of hardware in this. It takes 3 zippers and a spring snap or snap fastener or whatever you call them. If you are rougher with your wallets, you can use a heavier press stud. You can use the 201 press studs. Okay, so now that we've done that, what I want to do is I'm going to top stitch each of the folds. Now you can skip this for you don't have to do it on these parts if you don't want to, but I just think it looks nice, so I'm going to do it. So I'm doing it at 1/8 of an inch. And then I'm going to trim off the tail, and then I'm going to grab the next one and do that as well. I'm not back stitching because it's all going to be in the seam, so I'm not really too worried. And then we're going to fold this over, and this is our last seam. So this is one of those projects where if you've got a thinner vinyl or a thinner leather, this is actually perfect for it. Because we do end up sewing quite a few layers towards the end. So if you're using anything too thick, you will need a heavy duty machine. Even when I'm not using waterproof canvas, still do not interface your card slots or it makes it way too thick. Okay, so now we've got our actual card slots with a nice top. So we need a ruler and some kind of erasable marking thing. I'm going to use my Chaco pen, which is essentially just chalk dust that comes out with a wheel at the end. Actually, before I'm going to mark it, I'm going to line all these up and I'm going to stitch bottom to top just within the seam allowance on the edge to hold all the card slots in place so that they don't move on me. From there and there. And then I'm going to do the same to the other side, and I still want to stitch it bottom to top, making sure that these are all lined up. Yep, and I just lost my thread. So that happens when you don't leave a long enough tail. So I'm not back stitching for that. You can if you want to, you just don't have to. It's just to hold all the card slots in place so that they behave themselves. So now we're going to find halfway and we're going to mark it, and then I'm going to rule a vertical line like so, and I'm going to go bottom to top, otherwise you get caught on the lips of the card slots. Now I'm not going to stitch that line is just a guide. I'm actually going to stitch 1/8 of an inch each side of the line. And I can just pivot it around and go down the other side like that. And so now we've got actual card slots. Now we need our backing piece. So in one of the sizes you will cut 5 of something. So 4 are for the zipper pocket, and then this one is for the backing. I've just done all mine in waterproof canvas, partially because I've made a few of these and I haven't done any of them with just waterproof canvas. So this is just for me to see, as well as teach you how to sew. It will make it a lot thinner with the waterproof canvas. So if you're on a domestic machine, I would highly recommend using waterproof canvas as your lining. So now that I've stitched that, I'm going to fold it back, and because it's waterproof canvas, I can just finger press it like that, and then I'm going to fold it completely over and top stitch. And it should just fold on that edge nicely. Like so. Now, if you want to, you can also stitch all the way around the edges to hold that in place. But because it's waterproof canvas, I'm fairly confident it will stay that way. So, now we need some zipper tape. And what color do I want to use? Just because I've got red everywhere doesn't mean I have to use red. I'm actually thinking I might use black so that it goes with the spots. And sometimes it's just fun to have it as an accent. So, here's my roll of black. Now, the measurements for what to cut are in the pattern. I now just know them off by heart because I've been doing this a lot. I enjoy making these. This is actually the second video I did. The first one I accidentally deleted before it went up. So we're going to grab one of our zipper pulls, split our zipper open, and feed the zipper on. So you actually need 2 zippers this size and one a little bit smaller. So I'm just going to put it kind of in the middle. And then I'm going to grab my little zipper tab ends. So you should have 4. We need 2 for this one and then 2 for the top zipper. But we're going to, normally I would just build all the zippers at once and kind of do it in a construction line. But because this is the first video I'm showing you, I'm going to do it in order of pieces. So, double-sided tape as always. This stuff really is your best friend. Now, everybody always asks me what brand do I get? And the official answer is the cheapest one I can find because I do use so much of it. So this one is from Spotlight. But I have also used stuff from the Reject Shop and Kohl's and pretty much anywhere I can get it. If I'm desperate and I don't want to drive an hour, I will just buy it from a supermarket. So I don't have a favorite brand of double-sided tape. I literally just use whatever I can get my hands on. So with the double-sided tape going up the center like that, I'm going to fold it over in my hands and I'm going to place it over the edge and then squish it down. And the double-sided tape should hold it in place for you. Obviously not forever, we still need to stitch it, but at least for a little while. I could have also used black with gold teeth, that would have looked nice, but too late now, I didn't think of it. So I'm going to top stitch 1/8 of an inch along there, and I want to make my top stitch a little bit longer so I don't over perforate the vinyl, because I do want it to look pretty. Like that. Lift it up, pull it out, snip. Trim off all the tails, and so now you have a zip with ends. So your zipper pull can't come off. Now, if you have followed the pattern where you've cut 3 of these and 2 waterproof canvas, the waterproof canvas is for the inside of this zipper pocket. So this one would be waterproof canvas, And then we line the zip up in the middle. And we're going to use some Wonder clips to clip it down. Now the reason I use clips for this is because it doesn't go all the way to the edge, and waterproof canvas can be slippery, and we don't want that. Now, if you've done it with the 3 and the 2, this one would be your patterned outside, and you will put it face down on top of everything. But I've just done all of mine in waterproof canvas. And the reason we want to do this is because it does get quite thick. So this one that I did here, you've got to think, when we're sewing this part together, you've got the edge of this, plus the edge of this, plus the 2 main bits of vinyl, and it does get quite thick there. So you just want to think about what your machine can handle when making it. So we're going to stitch and back stitch. I'm going to go back to a joining stitch length, and then I'm stitching with this part of the foot right up against my zipper. And then when I get closer to where the zipper pull is, I'm going to put my needle down and just zip it back to where we've already stitched so that it's not in the way. And we're going all the way to the end. So even though the zipper doesn't go all the way to the end, we still want to stitch all that way. Then I'm going to crease this one down and then flip it over and crease the other one down. Now you'll notice that I haven't removed it from here yet, because it is easier to fold this down like this and then just continue to top stitch. Now we're top stitching both layers. And I'm going to back stitch at the end and pull that out. So now this is your outside, this is your lining, but we've stitched both of it down, and I'm not worried about any of these raw edges. So now we just repeat with the other side. So this one would be your waterproof canvas, and the easiest way to line this up now is to just make sure that the fabric meets at the edges. Like that. We're going to add some clips. So I do the 2 ends first, and then I'm just going to clip the zip along the center like that, so that it's right up against the edge. And then this one would be your pretty outer piece if you've done the different colors. So I'm going to sandwich that down to make my zipper sandwich. Like that. And then I'm going to stitch and back stitch to lock in those stitches. Say that 10 times fast. And then I'm going to zip the zipper pull over that way because it's in my way. Over the end, back stitch. And then I'm just going to do the same. So I'm going to spin it around, pull this one over and crease it. Pull the back one under and crease it, and it is still attached, so then I can just top stitch. And back stitch. Right, so now we've got this. So we're going to fold it over with the zip right sides up. So this would be your pretty patterned part. And then I'm just going to baste all 4 of those pieces together. Unless I run out of bobbin thread. But that's alright, because I made another one. That is my morning wake-up sneeze. Normally there's more than one, actually. Alright, I'm going to put those threads in the bin. Do a full loop and it will pull up your bobbin thread. So then we're going to just squish them down. Now within the seam allowance. So I'm doing it basically like a top stitch. So I'm doing it at 1/8 of an inch from the edge. And you just want to hold them so that they're lined up. And then we're going to hold this side so it's lined up. And back stitch. So, now I've got our zipper pocket and our card slots. And these are now going to sit on top of each other. Like this. So you're just going to line up the raw edges. This might seem crazy, but bear with me. Now you can see how flat this is because of the waterproof canvas. When I make my next leather one, because I've made one out of leather before, when I do another leather one, I think I'm going to use the waterproof canvas for everything because that is lovely and flat. So just keep that in mind because I don't know what machine you've got. I mean, this machine did handle this one. I just had to go really slowly when I was stitching here and there, but that's all right. So that now needs to sit on our inside piece. So I'm going to lay that to match the corners and I'm going to clip it on and then we're going to baste it on as well because I don't want it to move later. So I'm just including that last piece in the clips, starting at the bottom, working our way upwards like that. So I'm now going to baste it because I love basting. It will turn it into one piece and it'll be easier to stitch later. So you can already hear that that's starting to get thicker, especially here where the card slots are. And it's not a problem. This machine will handle this fine. This is a thinner leather and it's all waterproof canvas. So I shouldn't have any issues at all stitching this. But now that that's attached, it's much easier to work with. Oh, I forgot to put the press stud in. Of course I did. So I'm just going to unpick a middle section. You don't have to. So with my little snap fastener, you can just put it so that the backing will be here. And that's not a big deal, but I don't want to see it. I think it looks classier if it's on the inside. So I'm just going to unpick a little bit here. So probably 2 inches each way, or thereabouts, just so I can get into there like that. And then I'm going to use my friction pen for this. And I'm going to measure up from the edge, like that, and make my little mark. And so that is where I'm going to put the press stud. Now, you can alter this once you've made one. If you don't like where the snap placement is, if you think it's too low or too high, you can then adjust it to wherever you want. I like it where it is. That's why I did it. So I'm just going to lift up the card slots away from the other ones and then pop it onto here so that I can punch my hole, which I can't see anymore. Oh, there it is. So you are punching between your 2 layers of stitching. And that is why we did 2 layers of stitching instead of 1. There is always method in my madness. So now I need the snap fasteners. So these are 12.5 mil. I do sell the dies as well as those if you're in Australia and hunting for it. So a new rule I have made myself is anything I use in videos, well, not anything I use in patterns, I will sell on my website. Because otherwise, what's the point if you can't have access to it? So I'm just going to push that up through the hole. Maybe, maybe not. My hole isn't big enough. So I'm just going to get my sewing awl and stab into the hole and wiggle it around to make it a little bit bigger. Because apparently I missed. If it's still being stubborn, this could be a whole bunch of things. But If it's still being stubborn, you grab your craft knife and you just, I don't want to make the hole too big, but apparently it wasn't big enough. So I've just putting the blade in a little bit to make that hole a bit wider. Because waterproof canvas does not stretch at all. So if you don't make a big enough hole, you won't get it through. So now I'm going to put the little one on here. Now you can do this either way. So you can either put this part here or the other part. It doesn't really matter. So I'm going to sit that up in there. And then I'm just going to put this over and press down. And that's now on. Now I'm not going to stitch up that little hole at the bottom because it was just a basting thing and I'm not worried. So it can just stay there. While I'm here, I can take these ones off and put the other ones in because we're going to need them soon. Pop that down on the ground. Okay. So now we've got our press stud in the center. We can move on to our card ID slot, which is some clear vinyl. Now this is quite a thick clear vinyl. And then I'm using red accent vinyl. So this is the fire engine red because I think it goes really well with the waterproof canvas. So you don't have to make everything out of the same color. This one's going to be colorful. So all of these parts are accents. So what I did when designing this was I took one of the zipper overlay sets out of my set. So it's got the cool curved edges. And then I've matched the edges on this. So if you find that this is a bit too tricky, you can just square them out. I just did it for like a beautiful accent. But if you're new to sewing and those corners scare you, you can just make them squared or you can round them off in the other direction. Concave is always harder to sew than convex, I personally think. So if you're struggling, just change it to make it easier for you. It will still look good with just a plain square ID window. I actually wouldn't mind designing a matching set to these of this. I think that would be fabulous. So I'm just pulling off the backing. Now I've put it on all four edges. Depending on how thick you've used for your vinyl, it may slip and stretch. So by putting the double-sided tape on every section, you will find that it won't slip out of shape. So long as you press it down and it's in the right shape there, you shouldn't have any dramas. And I say shouldn't because, you know, things always happen. But generally speaking, you should be all right. Now I'm going to do the pull through and tie off method. So I'm going to make sure I've got nice long tails for this. And I'm going to start in the middle of a side because I hate starting in corners when I'm doing this. It's tricky. So we're going to go down, needle down and pivot. Now, if you're doing this in a contrasting thread, that would look really cool. I possibly should have changed this to black for this particular moment, but too late now. Now, I'm getting back to the start. So I'm going to pull and circle this thread, and it makes a loop. Now, you probably can't see that, but it's created a loop. And if I pull that loop, it pulls the front thread to the back. And I'm going to tie these off before I get back to the start. Now, this may look awkward, but it can potentially be more awkward when you get confused about which thread you're trying to pull. So I'm going to double knot that and then cut them off. And now the only two threads that will be left are the other half. And we want to go back through that first original hole, and then I'm going to pull and have some threads. So I'm going to pull on this, and then if I do a full circle around, you'll see that it's pulled up a loop. I know you can't really see because it's not focusing. See how it's pulled up a loop? So now I'm just going to you can put your snips or a sew all and pull on that loop to make the loop bigger, and it will pull the front thread to the back, and then we can just tie it off. And that way you have no back stitching on the front, and you can, only the super trained eye will be able to see where you started and stopped. Right? If you look, you can't even tell where the start and stop is. So, now I'm going to, just for continuity's sake, I'm going to stitch that curve across the top and down, because the other three will get stitched when we attach it. So I'm just going to stitch there because then they're stitching all the way around. But obviously you don't have to do that. You can leave it open. And because I'm doing red on red stitching, you'd barely see it anyway. But I'm doing it because the pattern has it. Now I actually manually crank these little curves because they are quite tight. I don't want to wreck them. And then I'm going to stitch, needle down, and then I'm going to manually crank the curves. There's only like 4 stitches. And then I'm going to do that whole pull it to the back thing and tie it off so it's pretty. Some things are worth it. I think this is worth it. Most of the time I just backstitch. As you very well know, you watch me sew. But this looks extra pretty. And if we've gone to the drama of having the pretty edges, you want them to at least look good. So, tie it off. Trim off the excess. And so now we've got, you can't really see it, we've got that top part stitched. So now I want to install my others. Before I put this on, I want to install my snap to make sure that I don't place it where the snap goes. That's pretty important. So I am going to find the center, which is here. And then I want to go, let me think about this. I always get this wrong. And then I want to put it there. So that's where my snap is going to go. But I am going to reinforce that section with a small square of stabilizer. I didn't reinforce this one because there's actually quite a few layers that you go through there because of all the card slots. So there's quite a lot behind that. It's not just this single piece of vinyl. But this top one would be just the single piece of vinyl. So this is actually base stabilizer. So all my little scraps I cut off, I cut into 1-inch squares and have like a tub of them here for sewing purposes. And that way I really just waste nothing. And then I'm going to punch that hole like that. And so then we're going to take the nice bit, we won't actually technically see it, but we're going to push that through the stabilizer first and then through the hole like that. So we've got 2 layers there, so it's nice and stabilized. And then I want this one, so you should be able to push that up and it clicks into there. And then I'm going to put that under here and just push down and it's on. Now before I go any further, I do want to make sure that the press stud works. And it does. Fabulous. So then in the center, so I can just put a little crease there. And you also want to make sure the center there as well. And I'm just going to place that and then stitch it down. And I want to go through that first hole, or the last hole from our top stitching. up the other side and back stitch. And snips. So that's our inside done. Pop that aside. And we can move on to our exterior. Now I've done this just to prove a point. If you have a directional fabric, which mine isn't, but we're pretending that it is, what you want to do is on the acrylic pattern pieces especially, it's got a halfway point. So you want to mark halfway and then add a seam allowance. Now it doesn't matter what seam allowance you add, but you have to make sure that you add the same to both sides. So I literally ruled a line and then added it. So then we'll put it together, right sides up like this. So this will be the top of your directional fabric. And then you'll just sew them together. Now, the pattern would otherwise just be this on the inside, but I did want to teach this. So if you have some really cool directional vinyl, you can still make this pattern. I just wanted to show you that. And this is how you would do it. So you just need to add, I added 1/2 inch because I just did. I like 1/2 inch. It's a good amount. And then I would open it and press it open like this. And then I'm going to go up to a decorative stitch length and I'm going to stitch 1/8 inch each side of the seam I just created. And that's going to hold down those vinyl pieces so that it folds easier. It's also decorative and pretty. So now I have a full piece, but you would have it so it's directional. So if you held it like this, it would be right sides up and right sides up. So now we fold it in half, so at your seam if you did it this way. And we're going to attach this piece. Now this way only works if you've done a vinyl exterior. If you haven't done a vinyl exterior, you need to change into a Tory pocket. But I need to stop doing Tory pockets in everything, so we're doing this today. But if you did fabric here, you totally can. I will probably get around to doing a video where it's all fabric, just not today. And I will show you how to do the back pocket with fabric. Because if you're doing fabric, it's usually always directional, so we'll also have to do this. So, fold it down, and then I'm going to measure, and I'm going to tell you this measurement just because it's easy, 1/2 inch down, like I would with a Tory pocket, and then I'm going to center this up. Now the way that I center it is I use the marks on the ruler, and then I line it up in between those marks like that, and then I'm just going to push it down. So it's stuck on in place. So that's where it's going to be. Now we're going to open it and we're going to stitch the outer line. So I'm going to start here because it's not on an edge. And around we go. Needle down. Now, I can pull this thread through like that, and then tie this off because it's far enough away. And I've just got my needle down, so I'm not worried that anything's going to move. But I am just going to tie this off. Like so. And a third one, just for good measure. Possibly should have left longer tails for this. I can do it. It just gets a little bit more tricky. But it's not impossible. So. And then along the top edge. The straight bits are always the easy part. It's these little corners that take a bit of work. But again, if you don't want to do them, you just square it out. It's just, I think it looks pretty with them. I backstitched that one. I've made peace with that decision. Right, back with our craft knife. And if you've got a small cutting board, that definitely helps your cause. So then I'm just going to cut along next to my red vinyl and cut out the excess vinyl underneath the zipper section. This knife is no longer the sharpest. I think I've had the same blade in it since I've owned it. It's almost time. If your blade's not working, you can grab scissors. Now, my little red scissors would be ideal, but I'm pretty sure Jesse ran off with them. But he's practicing his cutting, so who am I to say no? And they were $4. If he ran off with these, I'd be slightly more concerned. All right, so now we've got our hole. Ta-da! So now I'm going to need some more tape, and we need our little small rectangles. And so I'm just going to cut the tape the same width as the pocket, which again, all the measurements are actually in the pattern. It's fine. So I'm melting both ends, and I'm grabbing one of my zipper pulls, cracking it open, and if you just wiggle it down, it'll move. So you want to put it kind of in the center. Actually, I didn't need that on yet. It's probably easier to stitch it with it off, so I'm just going to take it off. You can leave it on. If you struggle with zips, you might want to do it first. So I'm stitching 1/8 of an inch from the outer edge for this zip. And then I'm going to lay this down and put it right sides up as well. So the inside will have the red, is the idea. The outside, we don't need to put it outside because that's our outside. But we just want to attach the zip, and I do back stitch because I don't want this to fall off. That would suck. Now you can put your zip on. Also, again, if you've got directional fabric, because it's got the two sections, both sides can be right sides up. Put your zip kind of in the middle, and then I'm going to press this down so that the zipper sits flat and the waterproof canvas is being folded over. Now, if you've used fabric, you might want to iron this so it's flat because it is easy to work with. Then I'm just going to pick this up and place it over the top of the hole. And now we're going to stitch the inner rectangle. So I'm going to start this side of my zipper. So my zipper closes this way. So I'm going to start this side and I'm going to top stitch around. Now, because I'm going to go completely in a circle, I didn't back stitch because I can go over those stitches when I get back there. Now that I'm back up to the zipper, I'm going to zip it closed. That way my zipper's not distorted and neither are my stitches because I accidentally hit the zipper head. Needle down, pivot. Now that I'm back to the start, I'm going to go 2 stitches and then back stitch, and that's all. And that's locked everything in. Ta-da! Now, this top one is always going to be shorter because it's got to go past the zipper. So I'm just going to come here now and trim this off. You can pre-make these that much smaller. but then you have to remember which side you've put it on. I find this way just easier. I waste a little bit, but it is much quicker. So I'm going to stitch all 3 sides of this shut. We are not turning anything through here. I'm doing about 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. If you do more, it just means you're going to have a smaller pocket. It doesn't really matter. Those measurements are quite flexible. But now we've got that. So we are up to final construction. We need more zipper tape. So this is our last piece that we need. I'm going to singe this end, singe this end. I don't smoke, but I have plenty of lighters for these moments. And then I'm going to wrap this back up because I like everything neat and tidy. And whether I'm on video or not, I try and have the same practices. Because if you just start throwing it to the side, things get very messy very quick. Especially when you have as much zipper tape as I do. Which is a lot, just FYI. So far I haven't had to stop the video, so that's pretty exciting. That was crooked. I could see that that was crooked by like 1 tooth. But that 1 tooth does matter because it creates a little bubble and I don't want that. That's better. Or is it? Now there's the bubble on the other side. Come on. Black's always the hardest to see, and I don't have my normal light on. So when I sew, I turn this light on, but it kind of distorts my video when I do it, so I can't really do it. But I am going to turn it on for this because I can't see what the hell's going on. That light that is in front of you is on the wrong angle. That's better. Right, now it's on. So we're going to take our other 2 zipper tab ends and we're going to stick them down. Now this is 1/2 inch double-sided tape. If you have skinnier tape, you'll want to put 2 lines. But because this is fairly thick, 1 line works just fine. Under and squish, and then under and squish. So now I'm going to stitch those down with a longer stitch length so that I don't over perforate my vinyl or leather if you've done yours in leather. Okay, pull that out. Trim that down. Voila. So we're just going to do the same thing we did before. We're going to take a lining piece. Now, this is something you want to think about. I am going to take this piece here and I want this zipper and that zipper to close the same way. So I'm going to take this zipper and this is the way I want it to close. So I'm going to put it right sides down, going the same way. So that when I stitch that down, the zipper is going the same way. So normally I would do all this the opposite way. But this is the way I want it to go. So I'm going to clip it right sides down. I'm going to have to move that zip because it's distorting everything. But just for the second, I'm going to clip that together like that. And then I'm going to take my lining piece and put it right sides down to make the zipper sandwich. And if it helps, turn it this way so that you can see what's going on. So it's right sides up, right sides up, right sides down. Same as we always do. I've just built it backwards. which may or may not hurt your brain. When I first started sewing, that really confused me and I used to get my zips the wrong way. But that's why we do it that way, because I want this one to close the same way as this one. And then the back one's actually going to close opposite. You can make it do it the same way if you want to. That's like a whole thing. I personally prefer it this way, but whatever works for you. So I'm going back down to a normal stitch length and I'm going to stitch and back stitch. And now I'm going to zip that zipper back where we've already stitched so it's not in my way. And I'm going to back stitch. And then I'm going to fold just the exterior back and I'm going to top stitch just the exterior on a decorative stitch length. So the reason we're not stitching both of these is because we'll get a weird bit at the side if we did. And then I'm just going to finger press this down. And that's going to help our cause. So now I'm going to zip this all the way up so that the zipper sits straight, because that's important. And then I'm going to go lining right sides up, zipper right sides up. Now, the edge of this will line up with the edge of your other one to make sure that everything is in fact even. I'm going to add another one just for good measure. Right, so lining right sides up, zipper right sides up, exterior right sides down, and we're clipping the half that doesn't have your zipper pocket, like that. And then I'm just going to add it into the clips as I go. And we are nearly finished, guys. Back to adjoining stitch length, stitch and back stitch. Back stitch, decorative, move the clips, pull back just the exterior so that we can top stitch. Now you might have to fold that over because it gets a bit bulky and long. And back stitch. Okay, so this is now what we've got. So we're going to zip this most of the way open, but I don't want the zipper to be able to reach the side. So I've left it like an inch closed, because if I do it all the way to there, I am more likely to stitch that into the seam. So if you have it most of the way open, but not enough that the zip can touch that, then you'll be fine. So I can go like a little bit more. The point is you want it open because it's easier. Now, I'm going to put right sides together of our lining and our exterior. I am going to clip the exterior because it's likely to move, it's bulky. You've got to remember, over here is going to be our bulkiest part. This one's not going to be so bad, but that's because of the fabrics that I've chosen. And then up the top, so where our zipper, where our vinyl meets our waterproof canvas, we want to make sure that that is perfectly even. So I'm going to put a special clip right there. And then work it back. Like so. I am also going to clip the base because I don't want that to have issues either. And that little squiggly bit of thread there, that is just from when I was unpicking so that I could put my press stud in. And again, we want to bend this and make sure that that's going to line up. That's a very important part to line up because it's super noticeable if it doesn't. Everything else you can kind of fudge and get away with, but that is one of those parts where you really want to make sure that it's lined up well. You can line that up and it's more important than lining this end up. because you can just make it shorter or whatever. Now, because it's waterproof canvas, I won't need to use clips. In the pattern, I do say to stitch and leave a gap, but you can actually leave the whole end open. I have recently discovered that that is just as good. So we're going to stitch and back stitch. I'm on a joining stitch length of 2.5. Now that bit's the easy part. Now we're getting up to where that zipper tab is, and it's going to potentially get in the way because it is quite bulky. So you just have to go a bit slower there. And then same with this side. We're getting up to the bulky part. So the first thing you're going to come to is your zipper tab. I don't know if you can hear that, but there is quite a few layers I'm punching through there. And then I'm going to pivot, line it up with my 1/2 inch seam allowance, and not knock that bowl off, because I nearly did. Needle down, pivot, we're going to go up the other side. Now all my measurements were worked out with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. However, if you can only do 3/8 along this side, that will still work, so don't freak out. If you can't get close enough to that zipper tab, just do a slightly less seam allowance. But make sure you do a 1/2 inch on the bottom. Otherwise, your stuff doesn't line up. Right, I'm going to back stitch. Then I'm going to take some thick, my Class A scissors, because these cut layers better, and I'm going to cut out anywhere where there's bulky bits. So here, actually I'm going to cut all of that off. And all of that, because I want this to turn through nicer. So I'm just going to cut this bulk out now. It needs to exist to sew it easier, but you can then just cut it off. I'm also going to cut those ends, and I'm going to come up to where the waterproof canvas meets the vinyl and cut that out, because if you didn't use waterproof canvas, this will be a bit thicker, because you'll have your cotton fabric, which is already thicker, and your interfacing that you used. So I've now got all these weird chunky bits cut out, but it's going to make for a nicer bag, so do it anyway, even if it does look disastrous. So I'm now going to reach my hand in, and I'm going to run my hand along this one, where the pocket is, because we've got all that stuff at the bottom that's likely to get in our way, and I'm going to push a corner and then pull it through like that. And then I'm going to put my hand back in and push out all of this part. Now I need my turning stick, which is my flute cleaner, to really push out those corners. And that one, you just really push it out. And then what else we need to do is our zipper tabs up the top here, we need to push them so that they're facing upwards. Like so. See? Now to close it off and finish it, I'm just going to pull it tight, and I'm going to tuck in as much as I feel is comfortable. So you want to tuck about 1/2 inch, because that's what seam allowance we use. But if you need a little bit more, it won't matter. You can be quite forgiving with that end. And back stitch. And we are done. And that whole video was less than an hour. And I'm just going to shove that back in. You want to really make sure that those pointy corners are down, matching the pointy corners of this. You want to get right in there. Now, if you're someone that sometimes carries a lot of stuff and then other times doesn't, What you can do is put multiple snap parts here so that if it's super full, you use the lesser one, and if it's empty, you can use the tighter one to make everything stay. But I think that come out pretty awesome, personally. So that's what it looks like, and I've made it so that the zipper teeth line up with the bottom, because if you line up the vinyl with the vinyl, your zipper teeth will then hang over like that, and we don't want that. So the zipper teeth line up with the edge, see? And that is your clutch wallet done. Perfect for embroidery, perfect for HTV. If you've got iron-on decals or decals or however you want to say it, that would also look glorious. And it's got just the right amount of accents that I think it makes it look fabulous. And so then here, you've got that back section. You can get to both sides of your zipper pocket too. So thanks for joining. I hope you love this pattern as much as I do. I plan on making heaps of these over the Christmas holidays just because I can, and I think they're awesome. And I think they'll sell. Anyway, thank you for joining me, guys, and I will see you all in the new year. Bye!